On screen tonight is Dion Lister. Now, Dion is, am I saying that correctly, Dion? Dion.
Yes.
Yes,
That's
right. She's the founder of STA Haven and is herself an NDIS mum. So she's got shared experience. He's very much in the same boat as the majority of everyone who's probably online tonight. She created STA Haven after feeling the segregation and resentment that came from standard respite processes. STA Haven provides short-term and respite accommodation for NDIS participants. And you can find out more about STA Haven and how they can assist you by visiting their website, which is www.stahaven, so that's S for Sam, T for Tom, A for Apple, haven.com.au. And as I said, I will send out the links for her website and her emails and her phone number tomorrow. Okay, so tonight Dion's going to take you through really short-term accommodation, and that includes the topic of respite. Obviously there's funding for short-term accommodation and respite, whether you know it or not, can exist in NDIS plans. And what it is that it's accommodation for a short time away from your usual home and can be accessed for various reasons through your child's NDIS plan. In this session tonight, Dion's going to take you through eligibility and options on how you can utilize this funding for STA needs, respite, or even how you can potentially use it to support your child's therapy program with travel and accommodation costs, thus allowing you, which I know I first met Dion at the recent Source Kids Expo, and she's a big advocate, being a NDIS mum herself, being a big advocate for participants having full choice and control. And she's a very, very big advocate of, well, if you want to get your service in a state that's not necessarily where you're located, then you should have that choice and control. So tonight we're going to learn about what can be considered as part of your considered in your STA, including accommodation, meal allowances, activities allowances, and travel allowances. We'll learn how you can best access funding, including top tips on how you can best match a STA package to suit your child and family's needs. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to take myself off camera and I'm going to pass on to Dion. I will encourage you, as I mentioned earlier on, if you do have questions, to either pop them into the chat function, or remember that we will have time for questions towards the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over and thank Dion for her time tonight and pass over to her so she can get started. Thank you, Dion.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, I'm Dion. I have been running Stay Haven since October last year, but was actually working independently for about 12 to 18 months prior to that. The reason I got into it is I have a 16-year-old daughter who is cerebral palsy, and like anyone with a special needs child, relies on a lot of outside assistance and support. We engaged a great team, but in the long run, we found that there was a lot of separation in our family. We have two other children who would question why Izzy was always doing what she wanted to do and they were not allowed to be involved. So we started to deal with different challenges that came with her having respite and us not being able to be involved. So that was something that was quite detrimental to my other two children, who are 14 and 8. Another reason we went into it was because we had a lot of our support teams would charge the top dollar. So as you would know, NDIS guidelines have a cap, which usually your weekdays around $2,033, your Saturdays around $2,400, and your Sunday can be about $3,400. And they would charge top dollar regardless of what they spent. So even if the accommodation only came in at $200 or $300, and they only spent $100 on food and then included their hours, they would still charge that top rate. And for some weekends, we were paying up to $10,000. That would be a long weekend. So it really, really started to get under my skin personally, and I tried to work out other options of how it could be managed. I then had a friend ring me and ask me if I knew of a provider who actually offered this kind of service that didn't involve using support workers where you could use informal support. And I just happened to be in a position where I could say, hey, I'll do it for you. And that's where it all started. So from there, I can't use myself because it's a conflict of interest, as you would know. But then I found a provider, and we started doing this because my daughter was going through neurophysics with Ken Ware. This was a therapy that actually involved her using her mind rather than a physiotherapist just moving her body for her. So we wanted to do this. It was down the Gold Coast. It meant it was a 2-hour commute to get there, a 2-hour session, and a 2-hour commute back. And that was a 4-day-a-week process for 2 weeks because they do block sessions. And so for us, the first week, my husband works alone or away. I'm at home with the 3 children, and the only option for us was to take the 3 children with us. I transitioned her into this therapy. I was there for the first week. There's no way she would have done 2 weeks without me. And then the second week, I sent her off to do it with a support worker. Now, we both stayed in the same place. The first week was about a third of the cost of what the second week was. So the first week, it was me in a 2-bedroom apartment in Broadbeach with 3 children, so 4 of us. And in the second week, it was purely a support worker and my daughter in a 2-bedroom apartment. So for me, then I looked at it and thought, well, now I'm saving money on my plan, and my plan's going to last longer. And 2, my children can be with me, and I don't feel like I'm being dictated to. I actually then felt like I had control over how we managed the week and how we managed our time, and we actually had control over where we stayed. So in saying that, it gave us more flexibility, and I wanted to actually offer that to other people because, as you would probably know, not every case is the same, not every participant is the same, and some people will work with support workers, some won't actually go near them or just won't deal with them for a lengthy period of time as well. So we actually tailor our STAs to what our participants want, so they can actually choose the location that they're going to. They can choose the accommodation that they stay in, and then we provide a meals and activity allowance. So if there's activities that you would like allowances for, you can inform us of that, and we can make that package to suit your needs. We also offer a transfer travel allowance, so that is something that you can ask us about. So yes, you can get up to 2 bedrooms in an apartment, and you can get a kitchen. So if you are, say, going to Napa and you're there for a 2, 3, 4 week block, that allows you to be able to cook rather than relying on takeout, which is expensive. So that is something that, again, choosing your location, choosing your accommodation that suits your family, your needs. We do encourage that you go as informal support because that's what's actually saving you money on your plan. If you do take a support worker, we ask you to negotiate those rates, and we encourage you to get a quote that we can then put into our package for you. That way they have to abide by that quote they've provided. You will find in any child's plan, they have 14 to 28 days of STA. If it's not stated in your plan, you can actually use your core funding. We previously were always on a 28-day STA in our plans from day dot with my daughter. And for the last 2 assessments that we went through, or plan changes, they dropped back to 14. So then they started telling us that under 18-year-olds will only get 14 days STA in their plan. In saying that, I went to the NDIS because we'd always had 28, and I had a few discussions with them about how we could use core funding, and they came back to us and said that we had plenty of core funding. Yes, you've used your 14 days, but you are allowed to use up to 28 days, and core funding can be accessed for that. So as long as you find it reasonable and necessary, you are good to go. I think that pretty much covers what we do. Has anybody got any questions they wanted to ask? You'll need to turn your mic on, Paul.
Sorry about that. I know that concept can be new, and I know there probably definitely are some questions out there as well. I guess I'll kick off the questioning for you, Dion. If we remove ourselves and let people process that whole thing about getting accommodation linked in with their therapy, what about just on the respite side of things? I mean, what generally? I mean, I think a lot of people, like myself as an NDIS parent myself, I'm not that aware of. I've never accessed respite through my NDIS, my child's NDIS plan. What is that there for? Is it for what I think it might be in terms of giving the family some form of relief, and it does not have to obviously be linked with therapy?
Yes, yes. So the narrative when it all started was that for us parents to have respite, that it was with a support worker outside of our home. Now we have that option of being a part of that. So although, yes, okay, so if you were, say, going to Napa, in Napa, I'm not sure how you work, but I know if I go to therapy, I don't necessarily have to stay there the whole time. You can actually go and do something outside of that. If you did want to engage support and keep the price down, we have we actually encourage people to reach out on a platform called Mabel, which you'd probably all be familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
That way it allows the participant to connect with the person personally. And then they just come in and do those few hours, whether it be out of a night where mum and dad want to go do dinner, or the kids want to go out with mum for dinner, and they stay back with their person. That way you're not paying those full high rates throughout the day just to have them there for when you're not, or when you want that break. So I've actually had success with Mabel, and I find it more personal to do it that way than to have a company organised support, because you don't click with that support. If they're not up to speed on how you guys work, then it's not going to work.
Okay, great. And I mean, I guess going back, one of the questions that's come through, what is the actual difference between STA and respite? Is there actual difference?
No, I don't see. No, short-term accommodation is respite.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So a long time ago, we used to put Izzy into a place called Centacare, and they would charge close to $4,000 for a weekend. She'd be there from Friday afternoon through to Sunday lunchtime. Never really left the house. They were lucky to go out and go out for dinner. If they did, they had to have their own money. And if they didn't, they just had to go back and cook a meal. So this, when it is so much cheaper, gives the family so much more.
Yeah.
And I think it's more beneficial for the person as well.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
not in the same place every time they go somewhere. They can choose somewhere different.
Yeah. So what about, so if you're not linking it with a therapy service, can respite then be a weekend away with your family?
Yes.
What is there a grey line there between what is respite and what is a holiday, and what would be considered a typical family holiday versus respite? And one of the questions that's just come through there, if you're doing something like that, can you only claim or put through an NDIS a percentage of the cost? In that, is it only, the total cost of the weekend, for example? If you're a family of 5 divided by 5, you can only put that through because your child is the child with the needs is only one person of the 5 staying, or what can you actually put through the NDIS plan?
So the way we work ours is we provide a quote that includes accommodation, meals and activities, transfer travel, which is a base fee, base cost. And then we provide the participant with that quote with our fee, which is a flat fee. And you only pay for what it costs you plus our fee. And then we charge it as STA.
Right.
So that includes whatever costs that it involves. If you're going over that day rate, then you're out of pocket. But we like to stay away from the day rate because it's all about saving money on the plan.
Okay, so then the travel there can pay for everyone going,
Yes.
or not just the participant, but everyone
No.
that's going on that thing. Right. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
So you can have a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right.
That 2-bedroom accommodates your family, then it's paid for.
Okay, and in that example, let's just say, you know, the example you gave earlier about you guys going to Gold Coast, I know you're Queensland based, so that didn't involve a flight, but if you were New South Wales based, could you put flights into that? Or is that generally not able to get through?
There's nothing saying that you can't put flights in, but there's nothing saying that you can. And there's this group over here that say, yes, we can do flights. And there's this group that says we can't. We were doing flights. We find it all too, it gets a bit messy. So we provide that travel transfer allowance. Whether you choose to use that to commute or to fly is your choice. We transfer that to you.
Okay, right. So then you then choose whether or not it's a hire car, you put it towards petrol, or you put it towards whatever the flights cost.
Or taxis or Ubers or,
Okay,
yeah.
great. I have a question here. Guys, just a reminder that if you do have questions, I know this is opening a whole lot of different things. It's certainly doing that for me, but submit your questions in chat. This is your opportunity to get them answered by Dion. All right, so I've got a question here from Sarah. What about STA for little kids? My child is 2.5 years and no STA in her plan. So is that like what you were saying earlier, just about accessing core funding?
It's really blowing my mind because when we had Izzy, it was forced on us to use respite. I find just recently it seems that children are not getting this respite in their plans. Then I suggest to use core funding, and then a lot of people don't have a lot of core funding when they're so young because they put it back on parental responsibility. I think there comes an age where your person should be able to go to the toilet and be independent. There's a time where they should be able to feed themselves. I think it comes down to when you feel that time should be, and that's when you say, well, look, no, we need respite. So it's all about being your own advocate or being your child or your person's advocate.
Yeah, so I'd say until a point though that you have it specifically mentioned as a separate item in your plan, you probably most likely would have to access that through your core funding. Is that correct?
Core funding, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely, once you get to an assessment or a rollover, you put that in your plan or start asking for it now.
Okay, great. Okay, I've got a question here. Can Dion give us an example and the costs associated, maybe including flights also? All right, so I guess in that okay, if I was to call you, right, as a father of a 13-year-old child that's an NDIS participant, saying that I would like respite for myself and my child, Max, as well as maybe one of his siblings to go and have a weekend of respite, as opposed to putting him into a respite camp or anything. I want to do it myself with the kids. What are the things that you would generally ask me to sort of paint that full picture of putting the package together for me?
So we actually have an inquiry form online.
Mm-hmm.
And in that inquiry form, you can go in and put in as much detail as you like. So if you have accommodation that you'd like to stay at, you can grab that link, copy it, and paste it in there. Or you can write the name of the place and where it is, and we can look it up.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, we have to keep in mind that we can't be going top shelf, right? Because that's going to take you over the daily budget, right?
Yeah, well, the thing is too, the more money you spend on accommodation, the less you've got to spend on meals, activities.
Yeah.
So you want to keep it within reason.
Yeah.
And it is up to you. If I feel we haven't got a cap yet, I have a feeling it might come in. So yeah, if you go to the inquiry form, put in as much information, mobility needs, that's always really important. If we know if the person is in a wheelchair, if they can still transfer from their wheelchair independently, or if they need handrails, grab rails. Then it's basically down to where you want to be, what you want to include, plan manager, support coordinator details, plan date, plan number, and we've got the ball rolling. There's contact. We've got your information. We know exactly what you want. We can start creating that package straight away.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. Going back to that question I gave you earlier on about, you know, a weekend away or a respite trip where, you know, one of the 5 travelers are the NDIS participants. What if that was about doing it in conjunction with the therapy? Do the same rules apply? Is it still the same sort of principles and everything like that? It doesn't just pay for 1/5 of the expenses?
No, it doesn't pay for 1/5. No, I've done it with, like I said, all 3 kids.
Yeah.
I have done it with my husband as well. So.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, for someone who is starting from scratch, okay, we've already talked about the fact that if you don't currently have STA as a separate item in your thing, that you, until that point, you can utilize your core funding. How have you actually assisted, or what recommendations do you give in terms of getting, okay, thinking about your next plan, for example? Should you be advocating, asking for a budget for STA to be individually listed in that plan?
I would be, absolutely. Yes. Yes, because you're saying that that's what you want and that's what you need. I just actually just did a new assessment myself, and because we had equipment, so we went for a standing frame, and then once we got the standing frame, we did a home mod. Our plan was assessed and then started again.
Yeah.
We actually accumulated 54 STAs in a year. And my daughter was going away pretty much every fortnight, or for a period there, she'd go and do her block sessions. So when they dropped us back to 14, I was like, well, I can't do 14. No, we need 28. We're used to having 54. So we've just gone back into assessment, and I've asked for a minimum of 28. That is the maximum they give unless there's special circumstances.
Right. And, you know, when it comes to advocating for, you know, additional therapy and stuff like that, you know, obviously the pathway for that is quite clear, right? You know, you generally go to your therapy provider, whether it be Napa or someone else, you get them to write a report for X amount of hours of occupational therapy or an intensive therapy or whatever, and you get reports to support the therapy side of things. Is there anything we can be doing in terms of supporting asking for respite, or is it just a fundamental basic right if you've got an NDIS plan?
Well, usually, yeah, everybody has it. And the only one that doesn't have it are the people that don't know about it, or, like I said, parental responsibility.
Yeah, well, I mean, I will actually put up my hand and say that I haven't done it, and I feel kind of foolish that we've never accessed it in the 5-6 years that we've had NDIS funding for my son. So I don't know how similar people are who are online tonight, but it's really is quite eye-opening, and really kind of, you know, it's really, really interesting. So I do really encourage everyone, even if you do have questions, because I'm sure you'll have more questions as you think about this moving forward, just to reach out to Dion. I'm sure she's got plenty of information on her website as well. She has that form on the homepage of her website where you can submit an inquiry and say, this is what I'm thinking of, and they'll come back to you with any questions and stuff like that. So please do that. All right, going through the next questions. All right, you mentioned before about a 2-bedroom apartment. Here's a question from Claire, can you have a 3 or 4 bedroom if you are 2 families traveling with children with an NDIS plan? So can you pool resources if you're traveling with another family, or you got to keep it separate?
You have to keep it separate because it's going through each individual plan.
Okay.
So one family would have one plan, the other family has another plan.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you couldn't get rooms that are close by. Highly doubt they would have a connecting room that are 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Could do Airbnb.
Yep.
So I've had some participants do a house.
And if it's big enough, you can just work it out between you and them and the other family, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. All right. Alison asked, does STA, we might have already covered this, does STA have to be stated in the plan? I put this to my LAC and was denied as using it to help fund Napa accommodation. Does it have to be 2-bedroom, as often I can get a whole house for cheaper than a 2-bedroom Quest apartment, for example? So I think we've kind of covered that.
Really flexible.
To that point, though, I guess, with the different, ways that, the different stories that we hear coming from different encounters that people have with LACs and coordinators and all that sort of stuff. Have you got any advice on that regard? Like, can a LAC deny respite? I mean, obviously, some of this stuff may be considered grey areas. So what do you encourage people to do if they do have an LAC that's knocking back an application?
Okay, so during my last assessment, which was about 3 weeks ago now, the LAC had advised us that she is not the decision maker. And if we want to talk to the decision maker, who is an NDIA representative, that we can. So I highly recommend putting it in and then speak to that person as they're making their decision and putting it into the plan.
Okay.
Support coordinators are challenging.
Yeah.
You get some that have just got this mindset who think, oh, it just sounds like a holiday to me, where if you live it, you're doing the same thing, just in a different place.
Yeah.
But achieving some kind of mental health break, because you're not in that mundane routine of doing your washing, cleaning your kitchen, picking this stuff up, doing that other stuff that you do day to day. It's allowing you to just take that mental health break as well. So it's not a holiday, what we do.
Right, better outcomes then for the family overall.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, Janine asks, travel allowance. Is there a daily budget for travel allowance? So you've mentioned the daily allowance for the accommodation side of things, but is there a daily allowance for travel as well?
400 on travel.
400 a day. Okay.
No, not day. Sorry.
Oh, in total.
Yeah.
For the stay. Okay.
But then,
right.
You're looking at doing longer than a week, so we can look at options. We are flexible. So we've only just gone into capping that travel allowance. But like I said, if it's over a longer period of time, we can tailor it to needs.
And really, any help is a help anyway, right? Because a lot of families who do travel for Napa or for intensive therapy elsewhere would be doing it out of pocket, right? So even if you are only getting the travel allowance of 400 and that's only covering part of your travel, it's still a help, right?
Bonus, yeah.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. Alison asked, is 28 days maximum? I think
yes,
that's right, unless you do have an unusual court thing that you mentioned where you got to roll over and it accumulates somehow.
Yes.
Which we'll just keep quiet about. All right. All right. Tess asks, how do you word a request to the NDIS so they don't argue that it's a holiday rather than respite with informal supports? So how do we navigate that line between holiday versus respite?
You shouldn't need to explain what you're doing with your STA, because nobody lives your situation. Only you know your situation. I didn't have to explain why I want STA. I just said I want STA.
Have you ever had to support it with anything additional? Like, I don't know if we got to the answer to the question before about, additional things and everything but like maybe a carer impact statement or anything like that. Do you find anything like that helpful?
If you have support workers, they would love to encourage STA, and they will do a report, because they would be thinking in their mind, it's money in their pocket as well. So okay. Your everyday support worker or company will definitely support you having STA.
Okay. What is do you have a standard fee that sits on top of the respite, like the total package amount? Like how does your business work in terms of charging?
It's all very flexible. Again, it comes down to what we're putting in a package.
Yep. All right. So in terms of inquiring, if someone's interested, you encourage them to just go to the website and fill out an application form. I'm assuming there's no obligation to that, it just starts the conversation.
No, that just starts the conversation. We can see what you want. You can look at the quote and determine what you do with that from there.
Right. Okay. Claire's asking, are you a registered NDIS provider for respite?
No, but we're going through that process currently.
Okay.
It's a lengthy one.
And I'm assuming you're not the only business like yours out there, or are
No.
you? Yeah, there's plenty
No.
that do this same
Not
sort of thing.
now.
Yeah, right. But obviously, everyone who's online tonight is going to go and call you tomorrow, of course. All right. Dalal's asking. Hi,
Yes, I'm the
Dalal.
only one doing it.
only one doing it spectacularly. We'll say that. All right. How would the support worker be paid if there is travel involved? How is this covered?
So basically, the support worker would provide us a quote of their costs or what they want to get paid for that time, and we then have to include that in the package.
So if there's travel involved for them, do they include that in their quote to you? So
They've
it
got to
doesn't come out of
consider their
the
costs.
right. So it doesn't come out of your child's travel allowance.
No.
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 Okay. So it goes into the support
worker is
work.
completely separate.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Lauren says, I'm a support coordinator and a mum of 4 kids on the NDIS. You sound busy. It's taken me 5 years of advocating to get any STA. I would definitely recommend getting supporting documents to ask for STA. Okay, there's a good tip there. I think Dalal is saying that she's in the same boat there. I think she was agreeing with me saying that she's never accessed respite or STA previously for her child's plan. All right, question, and I know the answer is yes to this, but maybe you want to extrapolate a little bit more. Samantha's asking, can meals be included in respite, which I believe is a yes. Is that right?
Yes.
So has that got caps on it as well? Is that like a daily allowance, a total package allowance, or?
It's a package allowance. And again, it comes down to how many people are traveling. So
Right.
we have, we used to do the Visa cards, but even myself on an STA lost a Visa card with $500 on it. Those prepaid ones you get at the post office.
Yeah.
So we actually transfer the meals, we call it a MAT allowance, meals, activities and travel. And that goes directly into the bank account of the client 24 to 48 hours prior to the STA. So by the time they're traveling, they have their funds for their STA.
So they're not actually out of pocket for that because it's a
right.
pre-approved amount. Okay, that's interesting. And so you said in that answer, meals and activities. What sort of activities can that include as well?
Well, swimming with a dolphin's quite therapeutic for children with special needs. So I just did that in one package. Anything, like I know my daughter did the iFly. That was something that she felt was a challenge for her and loved it. So
Okay.
it just comes down to independent, goals, I guess. You could work them around your goals in your plan.
Yeah, do you think that's a good tip to try and link it somehow to goals? Because I know the NDIS are very big on that.
I actually had my support coordinator present for my last review because it was on the phone, and she tailored all of our goals to work around exactly what we wanted out of our plan. So if you just rethink your goals to suit what you want out of your plan, because for so many years I just sat on the same goals with my daughter, didn't even think to change them. And I think the big thing about wording in the assessment was it was the about me section where my daughter would say, my mum helps me with getting ready in the morning. My mum helps me with breakfast and dressing and personal care. No, the support worker helps her.
Yeah.
Because if they think that I'm there to do it,
yeah,
then they don't need the funds for the support worker, which again is respite. So it's all about your wording as well.
Interesting question here. I'll get to the question in a second, but first of all, the whole concept of emergency respite, very much what we've been talking about here is respite, that is more proactive and thinking about planning ahead and planning respite into your annual or your year, right? But when it comes to emergency respite, what can be funded through the NDIS if you are unexpectedly faced with challenges? Maybe it's like a hospital trip in another state or whatever it may be. Can you access STA for emergency respite in that way?
If you're wanting to travel, they do not cover medical. But
No,
if
not the
you
medical expenses, but what if I had to
No.
stay in Queensland? What I live in New South Wales, but the doctor's in Queensland Hospital. Like, can I
I have
access emergency
yes.
respite?
So I've had a client who has her appointments in Melbourne City, but doesn't live close enough. I've actually had a couple of clients actually that have done this, and they've stayed in the city so they could attend those appointments. Yes.
Okay. All right. And so the original question that came from Angel is that she has been accessing her core funding for emergency respite, but now she's in a position where she's run out of core funding before the end of her plan date. And the NDIS have been slow with the review. Any advice on how to make the process faster? I don't know. This is more of probably an NDIS thing. She's requested STA again, which is her 4th year requesting STA for her 8-year-old. Any advice on that front? I don't
No,
know
I
if
feel
we
it.
could
I feel it.
speed that along. Yeah, I
And
think we're all in
NDIS has
similar.
actually got slower. Even with paying slower. So with assessments, they're slower. Usually, I think it was 28 days before you got an answer. Some people are saying it's taking 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I don't know about you, but every time I ring the NDIS, I usually don't get the answers I'm after, and I have to have someone else call me back. Or
Yeah. All right. So sorry, we don't have a magical answer for you there, Angel. Sarah's asking, should we seek approval from our LAC for booking STA? I guess before you actually do it. Like, should you get approval? Like,
no.
you don't have to.
Some people include their support coordinator. The more people you include, the longer it's going to take to organise. Feel free to like. A lot of people can't organise things without a support coordinator, and I get that. But the more people you add into it, the more emails that go around, the longer it takes. And then I've had clients miss out on their accommodation. And then we've had to start again looking for something else. So some support coordinators do have the oversight, and they actually are allowed to approve for a lot of people STA, but plan managers are generally the people we go to for STA approval.
Okay, cool. All right, Kate's saying, I have a 3-year-old. We're heading to Napa. Hi, Kate. We're heading to Napa for a 3-week intensive and have to pay ourselves for accommodation. They have no STA in their current plan, no respite, and a very limited core budget. She had support from a pediatrician, OT, speech physio, but yet was still unsuccessful getting funding for respite. So I guess, when you've got a limited core budget, there's the limited you can probably do, right? Do you think she should appeal? Do you think she should?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think she should ask for what you said earlier to try and escalate that beyond the LAC, the LAC?
Yep. And if you have had a support worker or even therapists have come in and caught you on a bad day, anyone who can put anything in writing, put it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe the carer impact statement, as we suggested earlier.
Yeah, I did submit that.
Oh, hello. Sorry. Yes. Is that Kate?
No, I'm just jumping in because
Yeah,
I did
you're good.
submit
Go
that,
for it.
and I did seek a review, and I was unsuccessful with the review. And to top this all off, I'm a lawyer working for a disability organisation, and I feel like I should have gotten a bit further. But yeah, I have a son who's completely nonverbal, very delayed, limited mobility, and I've just had pushback after pushback. I don't really know the way around this. What you're talking about today seems like a dream.
Kate, how far are you from, have you been given any reasons?
Yeah, they said there's no scientific evidence to support the need for him to have any extra support within the home or because that was one of the reasons we asked for support workers or respite, was because of his need for repeated demonstration of things to be able to learn new skills. so he can't learn something new just by being shown once or twice. He needs to be shown multiple times a day over about 6 months to learn a new skill, like touching it hands on head or touch your tummy or whatever else, which will eventually develop into getting dressed and whatever, so on and so forth. But
yeah, and just in regards to the respite and the claims for that, are you obviously? I mean, it's exciting that you're heading to Napa, but are you located a fair distance? I'm assuming from Napa.
We're in Newcastle, so
Okay.
I have to take 3 weeks off work, and then I'm a single mom, and I also have to pay for accommodation. I would love to attend Napa multiple times a year, but it's just out of the question. Like, I can't afford it personally, and it's just I have another child, so I don't even know how I'm meant to split myself between the two at the moment. It's tricky.
Yeah, I hear you, and certainly there's plenty of people who, obviously speaking to many travelers who do travel to and there are a lot of families who are accessing Napa and paying for the accommodation, everything themselves because there is no option. I guess the fact that there are these options out there, but there are very different experiences in how people are accessing them and different successes with them. I mean, do you have any advice for this situation, Dion? I mean, does she keep pushing? It sounds like Kate's done the majority of things that we've suggested in terms of trying to get it in there. What about the fact that like as we said earlier, that it is kind of like a core right that she should be able to access some respite? I guess the problem is she's used the core budget, right?
Single parent says it right there. Kate, I would ask you to give me a call tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, lock that one in.
I might do that. But
lock that one in.
My core budget is just for essentially orthopedic shoes. That's essentially all they gave it to me for.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Call me tomorrow.
All right. L, I'm not sure what L stands for, but L is asking, maybe it's Lisa, is asking, is there anywhere that we can find all the maximum rates for accommodation and food and stuff like that? Like, is there a list somewhere that we can get a bit of an idea of this stuff?
NDIS price guide, but it's just STA.
There's a short-term accommodation section?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your day rate on a weekday is $2,033. And as I said before, your Saturday sits around 2,400 and your Sunday sits around 32, 34.
But that's the total amount that covers everything.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
You're not allowed to spend any more than that. That's your cap.
Okay. But there's 20, as you said earlier, up to 28 days of that?
That's just your weekend rate. And 28 days, you got weekdays in there too.
That sounds
so
like
it
a lot of
depends.
money.
Like in our last plan, I think we put in 28 STAs as weekend rates.
Right.
So we could get that higher rate for her to be, because she's in school during the week. So the only time we'd ever use it would be during school holidays or those weekends away doing what she's doing.
Okay. All right. All right. I think we already answered that one. Can family members join in and do the activities also? So, for example, if as part of the respite you did go swimming in the dolphins and little Jimmy and the brother and sister also wanted to swim with the dolphins, can the respite generally fund that as long as it sticks within your budget, I guess?
Yes. Yes, I have a family doing that at the end of the month.
Okay, great.
Once you hand over that meals and activity allowance, you don't need to keep seats. It's yours.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you need approval? Cassandra asks, do you need approval if you are self-managed? So I guess it's the same thing, right? No.
Self-managed, you approve your own. You know how to work your budget, obviously. So
is there any difference? Like, do you have to keep different receipts and stuff? Like,
no.
I mean, because they'll have the receipt if they've booked it through you or through another thing, right? They'll have that receipt, right?
We book it.
Yeah.
So we book the accommodation.
But you will invoice them, right? So that's the
invoice them as STA.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Can you have respite outside of Australia?
I have been asked this one before. I personally struggle with it because I believe it's government money and I prefer to keep it in the country. There are I have heard there are companies that do it. The only way I would do it would be through a cruise. I haven't sent anyone overseas yet.
Yeah. Okay, Nadia says, I have lots of core budget and no respite funding, and I'm going to run out very soon. Is there anything I can use the fund for STA ASAP?
You can use core funding for STA.
It's a quick turnaround. So she needs
Do
to be
it
filling out
quickly.
that
Ring
form
me
tomorrow
tomorrow.
morning. All right, fill out the form tomorrow, Nadia.
Or tonight. Fill it out tonight.
Yes.
Just in saying
website
that,
is stahaven.com.au, guys.
can I say, a lot of people, once they learn about this, they get in and they use them before the plan rolls over to ensure that they can see they've been used and they get them back.
Right.
Yeah.
Lauren asks, oh no, hang on. Lauren's asking Kate, sorry, the previous person, our lawyer friend with the 4 kids on NDIS. I'm trying to remember everyone now. Do you have a goal around maintaining informal supports and reducing the risk of carer burnout? Have you tried that
that's a
path?
good one. I don't have 4 kids. I've only got 2.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
I may have mixed something up. But,
yeah, sorry.
No, that sounds like a good goal. I have had goals about accessing the community and things like that, because I found accessing the community with 2 kids, particularly with my son as well, very challenging. But and I was hoping that would help. But no, I wasn't successful. And I guess that you're completely right. It's all about wording and knowing the system. And I'm still learning it.
Yeah, and as we all are, right? Like, you know, NDIS is ever evolving, and, you know, obviously we do recommend, like anything, like any of our Napa Nights, is that you still go out and you source your own advice and you do what you can. But it's good to have different options out there and just to have these conversations, right? Yes. All right. Samantha says, yes, you can use it out of core funding if you don't have respite in the current plan. Yes, we've answered that one. Tim's asking about supporting evidence to get STA as a separate item in our plan, but we've kind of already touched on that. So carer impact. Is there anything else that you recommend, or anything else you've come across in your time in the industry, Dion, that might help?
Well, I've actually had our support team quote us for a whole year of support. So a 12-month period, how many hours per week, how many in STA. So holidays, you got to think of every.
Yeah. And for those of you who may have been on our last Napa Nights on reports and NDIS reports and stuff like that, it's probably, you can ask for things like this to be mentioned in a report that your therapist might be writing for you, like an NDIS report, but they can't do anything like quote it and talk about it at any great length because they're not the experts. Obviously, Napa, for example, we can write a report to, you know, advocate for additional funding for therapy and stuff like that, and we can mention that, you know, a support worker and respite would be useful for this child. But really, you do need to think about how you support that elsewhere, because you can't really ask an occupational therapist or one of the therapists to support this, because it's not really their scope of practice. So they can mention it in their plan, but you really would need to support it with something like the support worker quote, etc. There are treatments that happen overseas, so it would be legitimate for some people to ask for a respite overseas. I guess, yes, that's absolutely a good point, but I don't think, if we're thinking about the NDIS and the Australian government funding stuff, that's where I think it comes a bit grey, right, Dion?
Yeah, for me it does. Look,
yeah,
each to their own. If you find someone who will send you overseas, I can't. Not yet, no.
Okay, great. All right, so guys, we're nearing the end of our time online tonight. So last chance to get a couple last questions in. I've just got 2 more here. Well, Nadia is really just saying that she's filled out the form already, so you've already got one there for you to get cracking on, Dion, once you get off this phone call. Chris is saying that that you could put a recommendation in the OT's functional capacity assessment report, so that's a good point there. How do you from plan manage to self manage? Okay, I'm not sure what that's asking, but Samantha, I think he's asking about, is there any difference between plan managed and self managed? Like, do you get any pushback from plan managers?
Yes, all the time.
Okay.
So some plan managers will push back. I found with one I'd put in, it came down to the mood the person was in on the day, because my provider would actually put the details of the STA on there. So they knew what we were doing on our STA. I went back to the provider. I said, please take those details off and let's see if we can get it approved. Bam, it got approved. So self-managed, it means you're responsible. Plan managed, generally they're pretty good, but I know I've had problems with mine.
Okay. All right, so here's a Napa specific question. So someone's saying, if you go to Napa 3 times a year, it will be 63 nights. If you use 28 days of STA, this is a calculus problem. No, it's not calculus. This is year 12 maths. If you use 28 STA days, any ideas about the other 35 nights? Can you use, so if you've used your 28 days, can you still then use core funding for the additional nights if you've got core funding left?
Generally maximum is 28 days, but squeaky wheel. If I didn't keep asking, I don't think I would have got half the stuff we've had. Okay. So as I said, they have done it, but it's rare. I think they've gone as far as 62 days in some plans, but yeah.
Okay. Angel's asking, do we need to provide a quote for STA when providing evidence to NDIS at review time? So do you recommend having the quote from you, for example, for the whole package and submitting that as part of your review asking for thing, or do you just ask for an amount and then come to you? Which should go first?
In my last assessment, we just put in weekend days and how many we wanted.
At the daily rate?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And sort out where it is and everything later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because each one will change. Yeah.
True.
You just want to go for the maximum rate on your weekend days.
Yeah. Okay. And you just justify that by saying that your child's at school, so that's the only time you can really access, well, that's the best time to access respite is on weekends, right?
Well, for most of us, yeah.
And Samantha, final question for Samantha, how do you go from plan managed to self-managed? So is that
LAC?
Right, through your LAC?
You have to do that through your assessment, speak to your LAC. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we got through everyone's questions there. I know there's probably everyone's sort of got lots of questions, and this is gonna open a whole barrel of worms and everything. So, but lots for you to think about. But what I do encourage you is, this is what Dion does, right? She does this day in, day out. She works with clients, and I'm sure it doesn't get through 100% of the time, but I'm sure she's had lots of success as well. I think the eye-opening part of this is that there are options out there, and we really should just be asking the question and advocating not just for your child, but advocating for yourself and your family as well, because this is a bigger thing, right? And accessing respite can be, life-changing for families who are dealing with the additional pressures that some of us are. So I want to thank everyone for dialing in tonight. I know it's a big night with government budgets and everything being handed out as well. So we'll let you get off on time tonight. I want to say a big thank you to Dion for her time tonight and for answering all those questions. As I mentioned, at the start, if you're here at the start, you will get a link to the recording of tonight's presentation sent to you to either tomorrow or the next day, and that email will also have Dion's email address as well as the phone number and her website. But if you want to jump on and fill out that inquiry form right now, it's www.s for Sam, T for Terry, A for Apple, Haven, HAVEN.com.au, and you can have a look at there because I'm sure there's some information on there as well, and or you can submit that inquiry form, which has no obligation, right? Couple of quick reminders. Our next Napa Nights, 28th of May, is on connection and co-regulation, run by Maggie, one of our OTs in our Sydney clinic. And then June, our Napa Nights is all about nutritional tips for kids with complex needs. Again, thank you very much for everyone's participation. Thank you for your questions. Very, very good questions there. And again, thank you to our guest speaker tonight, Dion from STA Haven, or Stay Haven. I've been saying it wrong all night, right? Stay Haven.
Oh, I go between the two all the time.
So I didn't make that connection until you said it, sorry. So STA Haven or Stay Haven. And as I said, we will send out those links in that email tomorrow. So thank you all and have a good evening. Good night.
Right, thank you, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Dion. Bye-bye.
Bye.